permitted in each of these zoning classifications, because I want to emphasize one more time that you are not just approving, if the city were to approve this zone change, they're not just approving the specific land use, they're approving all the uses that go along with that, or they're approving the uses that are permitted and conditional in that zone of C3. These are the property conditions. On the north side of the property, there's a bank with a drive-through window. On the east side and south sides of the property, it's a single parcel, largely vacant. However, there is a cell tower directly to the rear or to the direct east of the subject property. There also happens to be an access easement for that, to that cell tower on the north side of the subject property. So that access easement, it's held by the owner or the lessee of the cell tower to provide access to their property. On the east side, or excuse me, on the west side of the road is largely vacant. It's used for agricultural purposes. This is the used car lot at the station. You can see the used cars and the fuel bays. There's a liquor store there and a convenience store. So staff is recommending denial of this application, and we've prepared findings in the staff report relative to the criteria that are basically driven by statute, but also in the zoning ordinance. And so if you look at the criteria in the staff report, any decision that is made, or your recommendation that's made on this, needs to be made on the basis of the findings as they relate to these criteria. I want to back up just a little bit because this is an important point. This is in the staff report, but I mentioned that the types of uses that are permitted. C2 zoning is intended to provide for basic retail, service, and office uses in addition to those uses normally permitted in neighborhood centers. That's verbatim from the zoning ordinance. In contrast, the uses permitted in C2 districts are of a type generally occurring within buildings. In contrast, C3 zoning is to provide commercial locations for uses which serve as a convenience to the traveler or require a location on a highway or arterial in order to have an efficient operation. So the list of permitted uses in the C3 district, unlike the C2 zone, includes the sale and rental of cars, recreational vehicles, construction equipment, farm machinery, large and bulky items displayed outside of buildings and contractors' storage yards and related storage. In addition, hotels and a variety of wholesale business activities are permitted in the C3 zone. Hotels and sales of new cars may be permitted by conditional use permit in the C2 district. The zoning district's treatment of regional retail, shopping, lodging, and car sales is relevant because the land surrounding the property, being as they are in proximity to the I-35 interchange, may be attractive to these uses. So in looking at the criteria, the first criterion is conformance of the proposed use to the community development plan and other planning policies. And I won't go over the detailed analysis of each of those criteria, but generally what staff is stating in this staff report is that in terms of criterion 1, the community development plan, consistency of the community development plan, that it may comply with that criteria. It's a little difficult to tell. It certainly doesn't. It's certainly not clearly inconsistent with the land use map in the community development plan. For the second criterion, the character of the neighborhood, including but not limited to land use, zoning, density, architectural style, building materials, height, structural mass, siding, open space, and floor to area ratio, we're contending that it does not meet that criterion. The zoning and uses of nearby properties and the extent to which the proposed use would be in harmony with such zoning and uses, we're stating that that does not support that criterion. The suitability of the property of the uses to which it has been restricted under the applicable zoning district regulations. And we're stating that, staff is stating that it does not meet that criterion. The length of time the property has remained vacant as zoned, the property is not vacant. So that's not really a consideration in this case because the property is not vacant. It's being used for actually two other uses. The extent to which the approval of the application would detrimentally affect nearby properties. We're stating that it's not consistent with that criterion. I want to this is kind of an important one because I think there's some subjectivity involved in this one, but what we're saying here is that the negative effects of the uses that are permitted in the proposed C3 zoning, while in some ways might not be harmful, but do have aesthetic impacts, largely because they involve a lot of outdoor storage and that type of thing. Consider that some of the uses in the C3 zone include wholesale facilities and major auto repair like auto body shops and that type of thing. And they may have potential negative effects not compatible with some uses permitted in the C2 zoning. The next criterion, the extent to which the proposed use would substantially harm the value of nearby properties, and we're stating that it does have potential harm on nearby properties. If you look at the location of this property and the land that's between this property and the interchange, it's a very visible location. It's a significant entrance to the city of Gardner. It's a great location for, say, a hotel or some retail, a nice restaurant. And we're stating that the uses that are permitted in the C3 zone, some of those uses are really not compatible with the potential future development, which has a lot of potential, to the immediately south, while at the same time acknowledging that the land on the other side of Gardner Road is Zone C3. Next criterion is the extent to which the proposed use would adversely affect the capacity or safety of that portion of the road network influenced by the use or the present parking problems in the vicinity of the property. We don't think that that's really an issue with this application. We're not stating that it does not meet that criterion. Keep in mind that this has to do with the road network outside of the property. The use of the property or the circulation on the site is certainly impacted by the used car lot, we'd say negatively, but this is really pertaining to Gardner Road and the transportation infrastructure off-site. The extent to which the next criterion is the extent to which the proposed use would create excessive air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, or other environmental harm. And we don't think that that's an issue with this application. The economic impact of the proposed use on the community. I don't think there's enough information to really know the answer to that. We mentioned earlier that there might be some compatibility issues. The zoning of this property as C3 might be a detriment or detract from some of the land uses that could occur on the surrounding property that might be higher valued land uses, which those uses have been mentioned. So it's difficult to tell, but there remains a question there. The next criterion is the gain, if any, to the public health, safety, and welfare due to denial of the applications compared to the hardship imposed upon the landowner, if any, as a result of the denial of the application. I think this is something the commission could certainly debate. You have an operator of a car dealer who, if they don't get the zoning, they're not